Welcome, ladies and gents. Welcome to STR Q&A. I've got, I made a post yesterday about what I'm going to talk about today about ADR versus occupancy with hosting and which one is better. I've got my opinion. I got, how many freaking comments did I get? Maybe like 36 comments on this post. So I definitely struck a nerve. But we're going to jump into it. I'm going to explain my point of view. Once again, I don't know everything, right? But I have enough experience to really form an educated opinion on this. I've launched probably 70 listings at this point and have a lot of data to really back up like my take on this and why I think my viewpoint is correct. Once again, I don't know everything. Everybody has their own ambitions and goals and things like that. But from my perspective, I want to make the property the highest and best use property, and I will show you guys kind of what I'm talking about here. So I made this post yesterday, really just explaining like is essentially it sounds so counterintuitive, but most people are not making enough with their short-term rentals or rental properties in general because they are overpriced. It sounds so ass backwards, but it's so true because if you're overpriced, I'm not saying competitive to like what you think your property is worth. It's more about overpriced compared to what the market says the property is worth. So like if you think your property is worth $250 a night and the market is booking at 175 a night, your property is worth 175 a night. I don't care what you think your property is worth. It is depending on what people are pulling the trigger on all for that property. Now, you might get the 250 a night every now and then, but consistently, the market is telling you over and over again that the property is worth 175 a night. Once again, stupid, simple example, but I'm going to kind of go through here. And I heard the feedback. I want to kind of weigh both sides and kind of really shed some light on it, because this is a really good topic that I don't think enough people talk about, honestly. And I think it's really, really important. So I'll just kind of read this and kind of go through some of the points. You're not making enough from your Airbnb because you're overpriced. Let me explain. Prices are too high, causes less views, less bookings, less revenue, and less reviews. So pricing too high causes less views. People don't see your listing that much because you're overpriced. Less bookings. Obviously, if you're overpriced and everybody else is at the medium and you're way up here, once again, you might get a couple bookings up here. That doesn't mean that you need to stay up here. You need to kind of adjust it based on supply and demand. We'll talk about that in the future. Less revenue as well. That's the one that's like really counterintuitive. It's like, what? How can I price less and make more revenue? Because you have got 30 nights that you can book in your month, give or take, whatever. You've got 1 month chunk. If you don't book it, that is the worst thing that can happen. You blanking on a night and zeroing it out, you're not getting that revenue back. Like, it is lost revenue forever and eternity. So an unfilled night is the absolute worst that can happen. Now, I can hear you guys commenting down below right now that says like, what happens if you get a bad guest? Like, it causes damage. Like, we've got precautions on the back end to help mitigate that. Don't worry about that. Just worry about getting the place filled and booking the place, making the most money. And that takes care of a lot of the other things. There's a lot of hosts right now that are just struggling and not able to like continue hosting because they're not making enough. I'm making this PSA to hopefully help those hosts out that are like, I don't want to attract bad guests. I don't want to, underprice my unit. Like, I think it's worth this, so on and so forth. So I say all that to say, pricing it too high just continues to degrade your property. For example, we have one owner that is literally dictated our price, and we're like, okay, like, sure, we'll take what you think your property is worth, and Monday through Wednesday it's X, Thursday through Friday it's X, so on and so forth. So we did it. We tested it out. We were like, okay, sure, you want to walk down that road. This is once again wholeheartedly against our opinion because we've priced this thing for 6 months and we know what to book it at and what not to book it out. It has been 3 weeks without a booking. 3 weeks without a booking. And we usually get like 1 or 2 bookings a week. So we're like 6 bookings behind, just trying to hit his hypothetical number, his minimum that he did not want to price under, which is completely fine. It's his property, like 100%. That is okay. But the 3 weeks that we had that were unbooked, that block, it's probably $3,000-$4,000 worth of reservations that booked somewhere else. There's no getting that money back. So I say all that to say, I've been through this combo. I actually just had this combo with a prospect yesterday, which is the screenshot here. And this is something that we kind of battle with a lot with, like what to price your property, because you've got emotional ties, you've got, cost invested in it. But 99.9% of the time, this is accurate, where whenever you're overpriced, you make less money, because it just continues to you're essentially stopping the momentum on your listing. This is the same for Vrbo, Airbnb, Booking, Marriott, like whatever platform you're on. The less momentum you have, the less you're going to get ranked, the less Airbnb sees this property as relevant. So they're going to continue to rank you page 3, page 4, page 5, down to eternity, where nobody is ever going to see you. So we want to be on the absolute opposite end of that. Now, that also means that, yes, at times we are going to be underpriced to get the booking. Once again, we only have 30 days. Everybody has 30 days in their month. As soon as that day has passed, it is gone. We're never getting it back, right? So if, let's say, everybody is like hovering at 175 in Price Labs, for example, or Wheelhouse, and you want to get the booking, let's say you want to get super aggressive. It's like an off season, or maybe like a Thursday night, and you already have Friday and Saturday booked. Thursday, you could be aggressive and go from 175 to like 140. And chances are you would get that booking if your listing is optimized and your photos are good and you have some amenities, things like that. But that's outside the point of today's call. You will get that booking 9 times out of 10, which is good, right? Would you rather have 100% of something or 0% of nothing? Would you rather have 100% of 140 a night or 0% of 175 a night? I would take 1000% that 140 booking all day, every day. Not only because you get that 140 book night on the books, you create momentum, which is nobody ever freaking talks about it. I think it's one of the most important things in this industry, is like getting momentum. And when you have it, and you also know when you don't have it. The middle is the part where it's really kind of hard to explain. So like, for example, we've got a place in South End. It's a duplex. It is not in the greatest part of South End, honestly. We got off to a rocky start, had a couple really bad guests, and luckily scathed out of it. But we continued down the strategy of momentum, right? What we did was we were booking at, I don't know, maybe 225. We got like 1 4-star to begin with. And we were like, okay, we need to make sure the value equation is level. So whenever you raise your prices, your expectations go up as a guest. And whenever you lower them, the expectations go down up to a certain point, right? So what we did was we actually started lowering the price, so their expectations were also lowered. Once again, we started getting 5-star reviews again. It was like, okay, sweet, we're back on the horse. We got 5 in a row. 5 out of the 6 were 5-star. We had 1 4-star to start, and then we started to continue to creep that price back up. Once again, price goes up, expectations go up as well. So it's always a fine balance, right? Like the one night stay for $145 a night, almost always going to give you 5 stars. They're there one night. It's a relatively cheap stay. Now, if that same property is priced at $215 a night, for example, their stay needs to be, 10, 20% better for them to give you the same rating. So it's a vicious cycle. Once you kind of understand and once I kind of grasp, I take this as law at this point, because I know it's true. I've seen it over and over and over again. Like we do, $2.5 million a year on bookings. Like I have seen it, we're getting on average maybe 3 to 4 bookings a day. And I've seen this over and over and over again. So all that to say, that's a lot of background. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. But this was a combo from from a prospect that I want to kind of read to you. They were really hung up on the nightly rate. Like, what is my ADR? What is my ADR? What is my ADR? The ADR of this person that is in my comp set, they're ranked at $500 a night, and I'm only at $400 a night. Like, I would go to look at their calendar, and the $500 a night property is still vacant, and I'm like, this property is not booked at $500 a night. It's just available at $500 a night. If it is still available at that price, chances are something is wrong. It's probably overpriced. That is the easiest scenario. So I'm okay with being that $400 a night property and getting booked. Now, that's a whole freaking totally separate subject of like what to price out per night. Completely side tangent. But we need to focus on the monthly revenue, not just the nightly rates. The nightly rates fluctuate. Your weekends are going to be higher than your weekdays. And over a long enough time horizon, you will get like your monthly ADR. But do not think about it in a vacuum or in a microscope where like, holy crap, this Saturday is only booked at $300 a night. Like this property is worth $600 a night. This specific one, this was in slow season. So I actually pulled up the comp set on the call and showed them July was like 12 grand a month. Like that was what the comps were doing. It was actually August was like 3 grand a month. So they were comparing mentally their July numbers into August, which was wildly different. It went from 12 grand a month to like 3 grand a month. It was a huge shoulder season, just a huge drop off from peak season to August. So all that to say, making sure you have data to back this up is really the main point. We use Price Labs to really just fuel this and kind of focus on the monthly revenue, because the monthly revenue is the most important piece. You can get higher ADRs, you can get lower ADRs, but if you get enough of those days booked, your monthly revenue is going to beat your competition. Like almost all of our properties outperform the comp set because we know what to do with the occupancy and ADR. Those occupancy and ADR, this is kind of the topic of today. They're two different points, right? They dictate and they work almost in opposition. So for example, let's say this is occupancy and this is ADR. Your occupancy goes up, your ADR typically goes down, and vice versa. If your ADR goes up, your occupancy typically goes down, within a certain realm. But like finding that balance is really the sweet spot. We're averaging like 85% occupancy. I personally think like 80% is really, really optimized. So you're going to have a lot of those lower nights booked, the Sunday through Thursday nights. Those are where all the profit is at, is those Sunday through Thursday blocks that nobody ever books. Nobody ever parties on a Tuesday either. So it's much lower risk. And I'm fine with that $250 property on the weekend getting booked at $125 on a Tuesday, because it's still $125 profit in the bank. The profit is made during the week. So once again, rolling back to this, focus on monthly rates, monthly revenue, not nightly rates. Monthly revenue is the most important thing. And I actually put down like a little equation here that I use this almost all the sales calls now because it really, really drives this home and it's so important. Higher occupancy, ADR. This example, would you rather have 175 a night, so low ADR with 80% occupancy? Pretty par for the course, 80% from what we've seen. That usually turns out, before I go in there, 175 a night, 80% occupancy. Would you rather that scenario or 215 a night? So a higher nightly rate, but only 50% occupancy, which is like most markets that we go into and dominate. Most people are getting like 50% occupancy, which is really bad if you ask me. If you're only at 50%, shoot me a message. I am happy to help for free to see if we're even a good fit. So back to the equation, the 175 a night at 80% occupancy nets out to about grosses out to about 4,200 a month, right? Not bad. This is probably like a 3-2, 4,200 a night, not bad. $4,200 a month. Or the higher ADR and lower occupancy, kind of standard occupancy in most markets, 50%. That grosses out to about $3,200 a month. So what does that mean exactly? Obviously, I think everybody would choose the 4,200 over the 3,200. But I got so much hate in the comments of like, what is that number? Like, you shouldn't worry about gross, like you should worry about net. I will tell you exactly what this means. And I broke it down in depth in here. If you're curious, go through the comments. I am willing to freaking go to war on saying that this is actually correct, because I am also an investor. My business partner is also an investor. Like, we get the net number is the most important number, but the gross number is the most important number to dictate the net number. So gross has got to be high to pay for the expenses on the net side. So once again, more wear and tear on the property. Let me go back to my notes here and kind of go through this a little bit more. So here's kind of the decision tree. You got the 4,200 a month, make this a little bigger, or the 3,200 a month. So I think the bigger point here that nobody ever really thinks about, nobody even mentioned this in the comments. They were like, oh my God, Caleb, like, what about the increased utilities? What about the wear and tear? What about the cleaning cost? That is, you're missing, what's the saying? Like, you're missing the forest for the trees. I don't know. I can't remember the saying, but you're missing the bigger picture here. Because let me actually, yep. Okay, sweet. Here we go. The thing that's not mentioned is 80% occupancy. You're having more guests in here. Obviously, well, most of the time you're having more guests in here because you're 80% occupied. That's usually about 6 reservations a month. 50% is about 3, maybe 4 reservations a month. So at the end of the 30 days, you have an opportunity with 80% occupancy to potentially get like 6 reviews, 6 stays. On average, about 50 to 60% of stays turn into reviews. So you are getting 6 stays for 3 reviews. Not bad, right? Not bad. The 50% occupancy host is having 3 stays, and 1 to maybe 2 are going to actually review that property. So you're getting 12 reviews a year in this 50% occupancy, which is really low. So this property right here, like this host, is going to beat this one 9 times out of 10. The odd exception is like, this property is super unique. It's got amenities that nobody else has or design that somebody else has. But strictly from like, this is the same property side by side, the 80% occupancy is going to win 9 times out of 10. So I say all that to say 4,200 is the gross number, right? Some of that is cleaning fees. Some of that's, accommodation fare. It could be pet fees. Like, there's other opportunities for upsells and like late checkout, things like that. So, so typically this is like, maybe 2 stays more from this one right here, maybe 3 stays. So let's say you average, I don't know, 150 a clean. So, probably 4 to maybe 500 of this goes directly to cleaning fee, because more stays, you do have more cleaning fees, right? You're going to have a bigger cleaning expense on the back end. Yes, not oblivious to the fact there, but that is probably a third of this. So this is about a $1,000 net difference here. Gross difference here. About $1,000 from this scenario to this scenario. So you net out about, let's say you pay an additional $500 in cleaning fee. The utilities is probably not going to be more than about $100 a month if you're at 50% to 80%, the difference, right? So let's say your utilities are, $500 a month, going from 50 to 80%, it's probably going to go to like 600. So like $100 net difference. So your net after everything, utilities, cleaning costs, wear and tear, like all of it, you're probably still net $500 after all this. So you are netting $500 more on this month. I think all of us would take $500 more a month, an additional $6,000 a year. to the bottom, straight to the bottom line, not even top line here. So I think everybody would do that. But the part where most inexperienced hosts don't get is the momentum factor. This right here is the most not talked about thing ever. Like outside of making that $500 more in your pocket, for your family, for the cleaners, like for your kids, like whatever it is, this part right here is the most important factor. Because with momentum, and when I say momentum, it's really momentum on the booking channel. So every booking channel has an algorithm. The more stays you get, the more reviews you get, the more revenue you bring in, and the more revenue that you pay to Airbnb and Vrbo. They are going to continue to feed your listing because they're making money and they see that listing as good reviews. They're taking care of my guest and they are making me more money. So I'm just going to continue to promote those listings versus this host right here that's only 50% occupied. They're making Airbnb, VRBO booking less money, probably maybe getting less reviews. Lower reviews, definitely getting less reviews. So the conversion rate is going to be lower. Views are lower, conversion rate lower. It's just a downward spiral. So that's what I'm talking about. Momentum is you're making more, you're getting more reviews, you're getting more opportunities to really, really get into the algorithm. That's when you start to get like freaking 95% months where you're doubling these people's take home. It's pretty cool. Like that South End property that we're at, that thing it's probably doing $7,000 to $8,000 a month. It's like a 3-bed. It's ridiculous. We projected about 5 a month. So it's 50% higher than what we expected. So this is a real life example here that doesn't really get talked about enough. Things to consider. So we talked about the increased utilities. Yes, increased utilities of guest usage and water usage and power of HVAC and all that. One thing to mention here that I forgot about. I got this question a lot of like, okay, but what about the wear and tear and cost of supplies, like more trash bags, more linens, more sheets, more towels, like all this stuff gets ruined. For us, I think probably the biggest thing that we do, one of the biggest things that we had an aha moment was we have a flat supplies cost. Supplies cost $125, $150 a month. It's flat. It's flat, no matter if we're at 100% occupancy or 0% occupancy. We've negotiated that with bulk, with our cleaners, and it's freaking awesome. Most hosts are having to like buy new sets of sheets and new towels every 3-6 months whenever they wear out. We just pay a flat rate. Our cleaners take care of all that, the coffee, the supplies. Like that is a flat rate that not a lot of hosts think about. Now, if you did not have a flat rate here, yes, you would essentially probably be spending an additional $400 a month just getting to that point. That, in a sense, if you did not have that, this would make a lot more or a lot less sense having that increased occupancy and increased overall revenue. So that is very, very important that we honestly need to talk about more in our sales process. I'm going to take a mental note of that. Cleaning costs we talked about. And then I think probably the biggest thing right here, or one of them, is like, I say it a lot, but this is like true and true. The margin is in the weekdays. The lower value nights is where you make all of your profit. It's everybody, a blind squirrel can book Friday and Saturday. I'm sorry, but like you put up a property and you say a 2-night minimum everywhere, like you're going to get Friday and Saturday booked down your calendar. You're going to pull it up and it's going to be like Friday, Saturday, done. And then it's going to be crickets Sunday through Thursday because the bookings happen around the weekend. So just make people stay longer. It's not that hard. So have a 4-night minimum to make people get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then you make the Tuesday, Wednesday 1-night minimums, and then you lower those nights. So we're also getting Airbnb Tetris where we're getting the chunks on the weekends, the 4 or 5 nighters, but we're allowing the lower value nights to also get booked. Once again, nobody's partying on a Tuesday. They're just here for work. They're in and out. And that's where all the margin is really made. So What questions do you guys have? I've been droning on, but this is something that I'm super, super passionate about. What we got? Any questions before we wrap up? I'm about to go get some dinner with Krista here shortly. Hopefully nope, she has not texted me. So we are good to go. I don't see any comments. Let me check YouTube. For whatever reason, Restream has not been pulling in comments. So I'm having to check like all the individual ones, which is kind of annoying. But yeah. All right. Sweet. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully that was helpful, and we will see you next week. Happy to help. Shoot me